There is a big limitation in Base44, the AI no-code builder for web applications, and I want to show you exactly what the problem is that could essentially ruin months of work that you're putting into your application, and also how to fix it without having to leave Base44. Now, if you haven't used it yet, you may want to consider using it based on this limitation, but let's dive into it. So here's the thing. I asked Base44, use editor.js NPM package. Now, most people will probably don't know even what is editor.js and what is an NPM and what is a package. Let me break that down for you. So NPM is this beautiful ecosystem that essentially lets me use other people's code for free. I can look and do editor.js, and I will see all the JavaScript editors that other people build, all those components that I can use for free because they're mostly open source. So it lets me build things faster and import other people's stuff and speed up my development and add superpowers to my application. Think of it like plugins like you would have in WordPress or in Bubble or in Webflow or something like that. Now, this is just for developers. Now, the response to add this plugin, this editor.js plugin, which is actually quite a neat thing. It gives you a Notion-like editor that you can add into your application. Who doesn't want a Notion-like editor? But the problem is, Base44 said following: I can't use the editor.js NPM package as it's not available in this environment. So what does this first sentence mean for non-technical people? Think about it like this. Editor.js is a third-party plugin that you can import. Lovable, on the other hand, actually can import it because it allows NPM install, meaning you can include plugins that are not screened by Lovable, that are not blessed by Lovable, into your Lovable application. It can import it into its environment. Where Base44, it cannot install plugins that are outside of what they have predefined. So the Base44 team said, okay, here's this application. We're going to add that plugin, that plugin, that plugin, that plugin. But there are probably millions of plugins that they left out, like every no-code drag and drop builder used to do years ago. Now, this was the whole problem with no-code. If you want to add a plugin, you have to wait for the team to add it. Base44 has the same problem. I cannot import any plugin that I find on GitHub or whatever that I like that I want to use in my application to speed up development, or that I find on NPM. I would have to build my own one. So it does offer an alternative. It says I can use React Quill, which will always look the same. It's a pretty cookie cutter solution. And, the reason it can give you that is because they have it pre-installed. So that's their suggested plain text, rich text editor. So you can only use the stuff that's pre-installed, giving you not the full ecosystem of NPM, but a very tiny bit of that, like a very narrowed version. So that is a problem. It could also build a custom text editor. That is great if you like spending AI tokens, which I don't, because it's probably very easy to spend half of your credits for the month by building a text editor that looks like Notion. It's a multi-day project. And then if you want editor.js, which you should be able to add, you have to contact the Base44 support team, and they will have to manually add it into there. Now, it's very unlikely that they're going to do this for everyone requesting it, because if they have millions of users, millions of people want all kinds of NPM packages. Imagine how much work that is. I'm not saying that this won't change with Base44. I mean, Lovable does NPM install, Bolt.new does NPM install. Most of them do NPM install. They don't. So not yet. I assume they will do this if it raises more public awareness. But that is a big limitation right now. Now, I don't just want to talk about the negative in this video. I actually want to show you that if you are already using Base44, you can still get those NPM packages installed. Keep in mind, my prompt was use editor.js NPM package. Now, let me show you how you can prompt Base44 to actually import the package through a method that was primarily used between 2004 and 2010, which is by importing those plugins that jQuery really introduced, by introducing and importing those plugins through a CDN, meaning through a URL. Now, how many times did you install Google Analytics? Or how many times did you install a live chat on a website? You know, they give you this code with like a URL in there to add stuff to the site. That is actually probably one of the older methods when it comes to importing NPM packages. The new method is bundling it into the application. That was really, it went really popular through the React ecosystem, which Base44 builds on top of. But we can still use dinosaur technology to get to our result here with Base44. Now, this is what you would do when you use Bubble. This is what you would do. No, actually, Bubble does let you import React components. Sorry. So it's worse than Bubble. This is what you would do in Node.Graph, what you would do in Webflow, what you would do in all those other website builder tools if you want to import stuff. So let's go through the process. I'm now on the GitHub from editor.js. I'm just going to copy this GitHub URL, and I'm going to say, I get it. Let's, and this is very important, import it via CDN. This is the magic word. It stands for Content Delivery Network, meaning we're going to import it through a URL. This will actually work. Let's import it via CDN. Here is editor.js's docs from GitHub, and I'm going to paste that inside of here. And now we're going to look into GitHub for their CDN installation. Now, as you can see, install using NPM. This is what we can't do, Yarn or CDN. If you go on CDN, you will see that they have this thing on JS Deliver, which is the best way into importing those things to tell us how to import this via CDN. So I'm just going to now add this JS Deliver link. Let's do editor.js on JS Deliver. And then I'm going to add CDN script. Okay. And now we're going to go inside of here and copy the CDN script, copy HTML. And we're going to paste this inside of Base44. Now I'm going to send this to Base44, and now we're actually going to import the package that it didn't want it to install through NPM. We're not actually installing it. We're just loading, we're adding this code, so every time the application opens on the user's device, it will load the script and download it and include it into the project. So the script, this editor.js, will not be part of our project. Some of the initialization code will, but every time the user opens the page, it has to go to the storage server from editor.js where they host the code and remotely load it into the application. So it's not part of our application, but it will be remotely loaded into our application. So that is what is happening. And as you can see, there's some action happening in here. We'll see if this works. We'll see. It's still thinking about it, but that is something how you can kind of like set that all up. Now, it's trying to resolve some errors. I would actually highly assume that there are no errors. It's just because it shows it in an iframe and there are sandboxing limitations that it actually tries to load something, because I think this bundle will likely work. Let's see, bundle.js. No, it doesn't. No, that doesn't work because it makes up stuff. Okay. That happens all the time with CDN applications. So we'll just take a look at the code and we'll verify that what we're trying to do is true. So let's publish this real quick and we'll see if this has some life into it. And I do have to log in. Oh my God, that's a full stack application. Let's sign up real quick for that. Okay, let's do hey@des.com. Hello, 1, 2, 3. Hello, 1, 2, 3. Oh, hey. Oh my God, this is like a whole process happening here. I gotta verify my email real quick. I'm used to just Lovable giving me whatever I want without questioning me. Let's do 611990. Okay, let's verify that email. Okay, that was successful. And now I gotta log in again. Hey at desbia.com. And now I'm going to do hello, 1, 2, 3, and let's sign in. Okay, so now as we can see, we have this editor.js, it just doesn't work. So let's inspect the elements here. And now this is where you got to get a little bit technical, right? Because we need to understand the problem. The problem about this is Base44 is opinionated in how you import stuff and how you build the application. This is a pattern that they introduce based on how most other drag and drop no-code tools work. This is not really how most AI tools work. It puts you on guardrails, and that introduces limitations. So let's see. Failed to load editor.js script, error for sample image. Okay, let's copy that. And let's look at the network tab. And let's also check which scripts are failing here. So as you can see, it fails to load bundle.js. For the header, it fails to load all of them because they don't seem to exist. So let's go back to Base44, and this happens all the time when you're trying to implement editor.js. It will most of the time give you a wrong implementation because those CDN URLs change all the time, and it probably gets some old ones because most of those packages have been around for a while. So let's paste this inside of here, and let's say most CDN URLs are invalid. Please get the latest ones. So we want this, and then we want to do discuss. So we're creating a chat conversation with it so it can look things up. If their AI is unable to resolve this, we'll be able to use Claude to solve this. But let's see. Okay. It will now say, you're absolutely right. Every Claude-based AI will always tell you you're absolutely right. But let's see if it is actually right. And the way you verify if those packages are correct is you're just going to copy the URL here. Okay. And we're just going to paste this inside of here. If this opens random code that looks like gibberish, you're doing well. That was successful. So now let's just continue with the other ones. Okay. Let's look at the header. Okay. Let's check that one out. Let's just paste this link. This works. Beautiful. Okay, let's go back. This looks really good. I think they're doing great. Let's look at the list. Let's go inside of here. Let's paste that. That gives us code, meaning that package works. That imports the code. It imports the code the moment the user opens the application. So it isn't bundling it in. It's remotely loading it, which has some limitations. Won't give you like server-side rendering, server-side initialization. You want to work with loaders because it takes a little bit to load it, but it is a workaround. Let's look at that. That code works too. Beautiful. So we're loading those packages, and that is a good sign. Those packages work. So let's go inside of here. Let's remove discuss, and let's say those work great. Implement them. And now I'm going to just reference the one that it gave us just to make sure that it's actually using the correct ones, because sometimes AI loves to tell you what's correct, and then it implements the thing that's wrong. Happens quite a lot, but we'll look into that. Okay, now I've updated the CDN links in the editor component to the latest versions, which should resolve the loading errors. That looks good. Now, it still gives us this error. I don't want it to fix the error because the error only happens in their iframe. When you got something like window.editor not defined, it's likely because if we look into how Base44 is showing us this application, they're likely going to use an iframe or some sort of that to show this. Actually, it looks like they're using a shadow component or something interesting, or just rendering the HTML. That's interesting. We'll look into that, but I would assume they're using some way to remotely load that. So I want to check that this works. Now, actually, it doesn't work. So this is, the same fight that we sometimes have to do with with no-code tools, with visual development tools. Now, we just have AI help, but we still have to be very precise to the AI and what we want. Now, if we look in the console on this application, we'll see that there is an error. Let's copy this error. Let's bring this back into Base44. Let's say, now we need to tell the AI specifically what is working. Otherwise, it will try solving problems that are already solved. The loading errors are resolved because if I go to my project here, right, and we are going into the network tab, which shows us all the packages we're loading over the air, you will see that there are not many errors. The only thing that's an error is this random thing, and I have no idea where this is coming from. So we're good on that front. It doesn't show editor.js. If you want to fully verify that editor.js is loaded correctly, you can go to network, look for editor, reload the page. And now this will show you all the successful bundles. Why are they successful? Because they're status 200. 200 is success, 400 is failure, 500 is internal server error failure. So you will get like a 4.0 something. 200 means good. Let's go back in here and let's say the scripts now all load successfully with status code 200. But I get this error. And now it's probably not defining the window object because I didn't look at the code. I probably should have looked at the code, but I assume you don't need to look at the code when you are seeing this video because you don't understand the code that well. Because otherwise you wouldn't be using Base44, but we can look at the code to understand how it's actually doing. I think when this window.editor is a problem, it could be either that it didn't define it, which sometimes happens when AI generates code, or that we have a type safety issue because it's probably using type safe. But now, as you can see, we actually got editor.js successfully imported. So now it's working. Now, I'm myself curious. Can we look at the code? Yeah, view changes. Let's see what it actually fixed because I'm curious to look into that. It's loading the changes. It takes a little bit. Okay. Let's see what's happening here. What did change? Okay. New promise. It resolves a promise. Wait a tick for the browser to make. Okay. So this is okay. This is not that reliable as it seems. It just didn't wait long enough because here's the problem with those client-side packages. It has to import the package, and that takes a little bit because the package is not part of your project like it would be in Lovable. In Lovable, that package is bundled into your project, so the moment your page is loaded, it's available. It's technically even available before. Now, where with those client-side packages, they have to be loaded from a URL. And that can take a little bit because your app has to call a different server. So what we're doing now here in this code is we're waiting a little bit. And, we have a better way to implement this wait using, promise resolve. And then we're going to set up the editor. And then we're defining it with the window, new window.editor.js. And I think there was some wording issue in here, but that's essentially what we're doing. We have a better way to wait till the editor is ready for us because we have been running the code before the editor content was successfully loaded, so we didn't wait long enough. Where if you work with those CDN packages to get stuff into your application, timing is everything. Timing is everything everywhere, in life and code as well, and also vibe coding. But let's publish the application. And let's see, now we have editor.js. I got my Notion-like editor, and I can go in here and I can edit stuff. Now, it does reload the whole thing whenever I'm typing stuff. That shouldn't happen. So let's actually see why this is happening. Do we get something in the console? Okay, so when you have an error like this with a package that you're importing, like every time I'm editing something, it loads the whole editor and it flashes and it loses focus, it's good to try to recreate the problem as many times as you can, like try deleting some stuff. Like this, it flashes again. Now, what this will give you is this will probably give you, some data in the console, right? And I'm just going to expand those data changes, and I'm going to include them into Base44. And I will tell it exactly that this is the problem that we're facing. Now, let's say in the editor, let's say first with what's good, I don't want to type in here. The editor JS is now loading. I can see it and it works. But when I type anything or change text, it reloads and flashes and loses text focus. Here are the logs, and you always want to include the logs that it gives you so you can it can kind of like understand what workflow is running when the error occurs. Here are the logs of the error happening. Okay, and we're going to paste that in here. Now I'm going to just go to discuss so I can talk with it a little bit, and then we're going to see what it has to say about that. So it will take a little bit, and we will now just, oh my God, I apologize for that. I just dropped my phone. And we're just going to wait till this finishes. Okay, now it's done. Now let's take a look at that. What code did it change? Okay, no file change detected for this message. I've updated homepage to ensure the editor component does not reinitialize. Okay, it changed it. I don't see it making any changes. We'll look into that. Let's publish this application and let's see. Okay, now if it still has the same error because it actually didn't change anything. So, because we were in discussion mode. Okay, interesting. We were in discussion, but it seemed like it changed something, but it didn't change something. Okay, that's weird. But let's go back and let's say, let's implement this, and we're going to send it to it. Let's go back to the preview here. And now it's thinking it will implement the fix, and then we'll take a look at the code, what's happening here. I do assume that there's probably an unchanged event that is for some reason reinitializing the editor because of, I don't know what. It could be triggering something on the backend that updates the content. When the content updates, the editor reloads, it will lose focus. I assume it's something like this because it comes with a backend, and that is great, but it all, sometimes it can cause some, debugging problems. So let's see what's actually happening in the code. Do not call set editor data here as it causes reinitialization. Yeah, this is my assumption. When the editor data changes, it's trying to reinitialize it, which shouldn't happen. So it actually did remove that. Let's publish the app and let's see. And now it works. Look at that. I can delete stuff. I can delete checklists in here, and I got Notion. Look at that. I can just do a slash and I'll get this Notion-like menu. I can add a quote inside of here. Let's make this bigger to see how great it is. So you don't have to, get the NPM package bundled in there because that is something that Base44 won't do. It's a limitation. You can actually accomplish the same thing by bundling it in through the old CDN way of doing things. So I can just do blah, blah, blah. I can click on here and, it doesn't have the tooltip. Okay, that's probably a setting we want to add to it. You can prompt that. But now, as you can see, we can make it a list, and then we can do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you can add more plugins, like you can embed videos, you can add a quote in here, right? You can add a heading, all that kind of stuff. So we do have this beautiful editor here, and we got, we can align stuff, like we can change it, we can do all that cool stuff. We got that all set up here. And we're not using too many credits because it's just implementing an existing package that is already out there. We're not rebuilding this from scratch, because if you build something like this or lots of maintenance for simple things like a text editor, I would always suggest just import it from an NPM package, or through the CDN way of doing NPM stuff, like you have to do in Base44. This will remove all the maintenance you got to do in keeping your code up to date, making sure your custom text editor works. So this is how you can add NPM packages into Base44 without having to use NPM import, which they don't support. Now, you still want to ask yourself the question, should I use a tool that doesn't let me easily import NPM packages based on the latest standard of building React applications? Because then it's quite a limitation. We're doing a hack here that was, for jQuery plugins. Now, it's still used very fairly. Google Analytics uses this way. And there's nothing wrong about doing it this way. But usually, if you're building a React application, you'll be bundling in stuff. It's just a better experience for React most of the times. So keep that in mind. This is how you would have to do that in Base44. You have to do it like you would do it in most no-code tools, because they really imitate this no-code way of building, because they'll give you a pre-built database, they'll give you, pre-built analytics, pre-built security, pre-built code, all that stuff, which is nice. But keep in mind that the problem of those pre-built stuff is you'll be stuck with Base44. You can't really move it away because it comes with all that infrastructure set up. Even though they let you export code self-host, it'll be a tedious process. Not as, as tedious, like Lovable isn't that tedious because they have a nice GitHub integration where this is designed to have it hosted with them. So keep that in mind. And also, their environment is limited because of that, because they have their own abstraction for handling user data, user login. Makes it incredibly simple to start, but when you're 90% done, you'll get stuck at the last 10%. So I hope that this video got you unstuck, because you're probably at the last 10% wondering how you get this thing into Base44. So this is how you do that. And if you have any other questions about completing the last 10% of your Base44 application, let me know in the comments and tell me what videos you want to see about going around those limitations that some of those, pre-built, easier setup, no-code AI builders introduce. I've been doing this for many years, fighting with no-code tools, and now it seems like I'm fighting with AI no-code tools. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that, and see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.